Welcome to the Costa Property Podcast, the podcast that turns your dreams of owning a piece of paradise on the Costa del Sol into reality. I'm Warner Laurie, and I'm joined by my co-host and wives, Sandra Laurie.
Join us as we embark on navigating the ins and outs of real estate and relocation to this beautiful region.
We're not just about market trends, we're about sharing real-life experiences, because we know the struggle firsthand, and I've helped many people navigate this challenge also.
If you're dreaming of your perfect Costa del Sol home and want to get real, no-frills, expert advice, then you're absolutely in the right place. Join us each week as we share honest insights and information that will guide your journey. So no one really warns you about this part. They talk about sunshine, the dream lifestyle, but not the emotional weight that hits your relationship when you move abroad. When your whole world starts to shift, when things really start to change, it can really hit your relationship. Today we're sharing the behind the scenes of what really happens to relationships during a relocation and how we got through it. So I didn't realise how much our identities would change when we moved. One of us became the go-to for everything admin related, set up in Spain, getting us registered in the right areas, doing all of the paperwork, bureaucratic stuff. And the other really took over the emotional load of settling in the kids. And that's why when we look back at our own journey, and I reflect a lot on what I would tell others, my first tip and piece of advice to anybody doing the move is have those before we move conversations before you actually get to Spain. So talk about roles, routines, responsibilities, expectations of each other, how you'll check in with each other emotionally. Do all of that before you get to Spain, because here's the thing, your life, your roles, your responsibilities, your emotional responsibilities to your family will change for a period of time when you move to a new country. And it's very important to talk about that and to check all of that out in advance. Just from my own experience, looking back, I would say to you that it's very important that you don't jump in to try to do everything at once. You can't do everything at once. You can't move. You can't set up your family. You can't be emotionally available for your family. And you can't both start new careers and new jobs all at once. And if you can, well done, tell me how you did it, because this is one of the learns that we learned. We tried to do everything and we failed. We failed dramatically. When we first moved over, I got a very good job and it started my career very quickly. Warner got a job with a real estate broker further down towards Marbella, and both our kids were starting school. Abigail in a Spanish nursery, that was fine. She was a baby, we weren't so worried about her. But Oliver had gone into Spanish primary school at 4 years of age with not a word of Spanish. And we both thought it would be easy for us to do our own thing in parallel to that, as well as all of the soft skills of integration, emotional support that are needed to embed your family in the early days. And it didn't work. So we had to press pause, decide what was important for us at that point in time. And what was important for us at that point in time is that we got the kids integrated and settled, that one of us was available for the pickups and the drop-offs and that part of life. One of us had that serious career that got us integrated into the Spanish system, into the social security systems here. So I continued working in the early days. Warner pressed pause and decided to look for something more readily available around Benalmádena area so that he could be available to do the drop-offs and the pickups of the kids and be available if there was school phone calls needed. Oh, Oliver needs his inhaler, or Abigail is sick today, and be available to support with that. So we learned in those very early stages that you cannot do everything. You cannot be everything to everyone, and you have to sit at the beginning and really take time as a couple and define your roles and responsibilities. And this is important because if in your previous country you've been the high flyer, jet setter, you've been the career driver in your family, you need to ensure that as a couple you discuss that you're comfortable with that, because that might impact your identity, and you need to ensure that together that's what you both want. And if it is what you both want, that you put a timeline on it for when kind of normal service resumes and you're going to both be in a position to both start to prioritise your careers again. So you can't do everything. Plan it out. Set a clear plan for the roles and responsibilities. Who's taking what role? Who's taking what responsibilities? Be very clear and in agreement of those in advance. And then make your prioritization plan. So what's important and when? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, mapped out with dates and timelines, because trying to do everything at once is, in my opinion, set you up for failure. Warner, thoughts on that?
Yeah, when we moved in 2016, Sandra, we basically made a decision. We came here on holiday in July, and we made a decision that we were going to move to Spain in 6 weeks. So when we landed back in Ireland, we had to sell the house and we had to be back here in September. Okay? So that was as stressful as you can get. But we knew that we had to be back here for September to have the kids rolled into school. So we were lucky that we knew somebody that had an apartment here that was available, that we could stay there for a couple of months until we found our feet. So not only were we moving to a new country, the kids were going into a Spanish school, you were going to work, I was trying to find work at the time, and it just, something had to give. So yeah, the planning is so important around that. And look, you don't want to make the mistake that we made. And this is why we're doing this podcast today, to actually give you the guidelines about relocating to the Costa del Sol with ease.
Yeah, because I think we had lots of arguments in the first 6 months of your move that we probably had in our entire marriage or in our entire relationship before. Like, I can assure you the arguments weren't around paperwork or NIE numbers. It was stress about roles and responsibilities, because like Warner is an ambitious guy just as much as I am, and I was back then. And for one person to have to press pause on their own career advancement while the other goes on, that can be stressful as a couple. You have to talk about that, and you have to name it and own it as a couple and make sure, okay, I'm going to do this right now because that's what's best for our family, and this is what's best for what our family needs. But let's put a timeline on it, because I want to get back into the workforce and get integrated and advance my own career as soon as possible. That is an important one. And I think that followed the path of the early stage of our kind of relationship. So when we first came, or our early stage of our relationship and family life in Spain, because when we first came to Spain from 2016, when we moved, to the end of 2017, to when WL Costa Properties was set up, Warner was freelancing with another agency, learning the market and the ropes here on the Costa del Sol, and I was accelerating my corporate career. But we knew that after a period of time, that would have to change, because Warner had his own plans to re-establish his own career and set up his own agency, which we were able to do. But that was possible once the kids were settled, once the kids had made their own life, once we understand what was available to us in terms of support in Spain with after-school clubs, breakfast clubs, hobbies, extracurricular activities. All of those things were achievable, but we had to first and foremost settle the kids and establish our routine as a family, and that wasn't achievable when both of us were jet-setting and prioritising our careers. So one of us had to make a choice. And at that point in our life, that sacrifice was made by Warner. A big shift for us at that point of time in our relationship was learning to really talk about what was really going on and naming the hard stuff. That would be my second tip looking back, that it's very important to be able to tell each other when you're overwhelmed, when you're lonely, instead of lashing out. And I guess it's also very important to talk about when you're homesick, being able to say it and being able to name the emotion that's really going on, because I definitely felt overwhelmed in the early days. A lot of the pressure was riding on me to make sure that we were integrated correctly from a financial perspective, that I was able to maintain that career that gave us the income to establish our life in Spain, as well as set ourselves and our family up correctly in the Spanish system to make sure that we had healthcare access, all of that. So I definitely felt at the early stages that was overwhelming. I felt a lot was riding on me, and I would sometimes lash out because I didn't really want Warner to be worrying about how I was feeling in my career at the time, particularly when he was carrying the heavy lifting at home. So I would say it's important to really discuss that you're going to talk about what's going on and know your partner, know your triggers. So instead of going, here she goes again, she's lashing out. I suppose Warner knew me well enough to be able to say, she's having a bad day. What's going on? I think that was important for us as well, Warner, to communicate well and make time to communicate.
Yeah, communication is so important. You're moving to a different country, you are going to make mistakes. But what you're going to do is when you make the mistakes, you'll learn from them. You may be living in your home country, have the perfect property. You ain't going to come to Spain and find that perfect property straight away. There's going to be sacrifices. And when the communication and when everything got on top of us, I just said, look, Sandra, let's go down to the beach, feel the fresh air, take the kids, let them run and show why we actually relocated to Spain.
Yeah, absolutely. I think carving out time in your relationship is important. Turning the phones off, going to the beach on the Saturday or Sunday morning as a family, and just getting the chance to reconnect as a family. And as you say, Warner, just really reminding yourself why you made the move in the first place, because you're relocating for that better life. And it's very easy in the early stages of all of the emotion and all of the stress and the drama, because there's going to be challenges. It's very easy to lose yourself, get annoyed with each other and forget about your why. So carving out time in your schedule to reconnect with each other and remind yourself of why you've made that move in the first place is very important. And, build weekly rituals that remind you that you're both on the same team and that you want the same thing. You've moved for the same reason. For us, it was always about the lifestyle for our family, showing them that there was a different way of life, that Mediterranean lifestyle. For us, it was always about that lifestyle piece. Taking the time to build rituals that remind you of that is very important.
And also, when we came here in 2006 in Sandra, there was no relocation experts or help or anything like that. Now there's a load of people that will help you find the property, get the right visas if you need the visas, sort out the paperwork. We had to do that alone.
Yeah, we would have loved for the support that we offer in the early days. I would have loved to have been able to jump on a call with somebody for an hour and get that honest, unfiltered advice, get some direction in the right way. I would have loved to have been able to listen to podcasts like this and have resources like this available to tap into, but that just wasn't available. The world worked a bit differently. So I would say that things have advanced a lot since then, and that's fantastic. But I think it's also important to talk about the honest stuff. That if you're moving as a couple or you're moving as a family, the early days of your move will take a toll on your relationship. And I want to call that out so that you're thinking about that and you're protecting your relationship in the best possible way against challenges and frustrations that may arise, because things are going to be different in the country that you're moving to. That will cause frustration sometimes when things don't go to plan. So have those discussions up front, have those discussions in advance, and talk about them openly, so that things won't feel quite as severe when a challenge comes along.
Yeah, I totally agree. And as you said, from 2016, the world has moved on. 50% of these people relocating now are actually nomads. They work in their country, but they're coming over here. There'll be challenges with that as well, trying to navigate childcare and everything goes with that, but still having a full-time job. Normally it could be two of you that work for different companies.
Yeah, definitely think about it. One thing I would say to anyone preparing for a move is, again, make space for both of you to have your own social lives. Date nights, doing excursions and adventures together, get a babysitter if you can. That's very important because you need time to talk, because you really can lose yourself in the logistics. You need friendship and independence too. So making the space for both of you, do things together as a couple, but do things with other couples. Make space to socialise, to make friends. You'll be so focused in the early stages, especially if you're a mum and you're moving your family. Your priority in the early stages will be so focused around your kids' friendship group, integrating your kids in the extracurricular activities, that it's very easy to lose yourself. So it's important that take up those coffee invitations or those wine night invitations to meet with other families or other couples so that you guys can also expand your own friendship group and your own network, because that's going to be important for you as well.
Yeah, it's really important that you do meet friends and you kind of have your separate. I love to go to watch the football, whereas you love to go and have a wine. So it's really important that you have the time to do that.
Just one point on that. We talk about making space for both of you, for you to have your own social lives. Make sure you don't get lost in the logistics. Just a call out here, and sometimes I see this unfortunately with couples or with families. They might have had a difficult time in their home country. Maybe their relationship went through a challenge or something happened in their life, and they feel that the move to Spain is the bandage, is the plaster that's going to fix everything. A move will not fix a challenge. It will make it worse, particularly if you haven't done the work together and had those honest conversations in advance and made that plan and those priorities together. Something as stressful as moving to a new country will not fix and bond your relationship. If there's an underlying challenge existing already, it will exacerbate it and make it worse. So be very careful that you look at your why for your move. Ensure that it's for the right reasons, because unfortunately, there has been scenarios that we've seen that the move was the straw that broke the camel's back, put it that way. It's just something to think about. Is your why the right reason? Why are you moving? Is it for the right reasons, or is it to fix something that's existing in the underlying weeds? That's important.
Yeah, that's absolutely important. And I would always recommend that you visit different areas to see what area suits you and what area you think that you could move to home.
So I think it's all about preparing yourself emotionally and not just practically for your move. Don't rush the adjustment period. Give yourself time with that. Don't compare yourself to others. Don't compare yourself to picture perfect expats online. We've all fell into that toxic trap lately, and that can be a very easy toxic trap to fall into in the early days of your move. Every couple and family moving has their own messy middle to navigate, and sometimes the picture that social media paints doesn't always paint the realities of that. Don't suffer from comparisonitis. Stay in your own lane and just remember that it is an adjustment period and your normal will come at its own pace. Don't fall into that comparison trap. So if this episode has hit home for you, share it with your partner. It might be a prompt for things to talk about before you move, or just reach out to us. Seriously, we know how isolating the move can feel, and we're always happy to chat and share our stories and share our resources. Please also don't forget to follow the podcast. We're committed to talking about the real side of life in Spain, from property to your personal growth. If this kind of conversation is something that you like, please reach out and tell us, because we wish that we'd heard about this when we were in the big middle and the thick of our move. Thank you for listening, and ciao for now.
Adios.
Thank you so much for listening into today's episode on the Cost of Property podcast. Another fantastic episode learning about the highs and lows of relocating to the Costa del Sol from real people who have been through the journey themselves, and of course our wonderful experts. If you have been enjoying the show so far, remember to hit subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating or review.
We absolutely love hearing your thoughts. Please send any questions that you would like us to answer on the show to warner@wlcostaproperties.net. Or you can pop us a message on our socials, which are in the show notes. Remember, you can also visit the website www.wlcostaproperties.net.
See you on the next episode, and bye for now.
Bye-bye.